What's up, bookworms, and welcome back to the Book Nook. I'm super excited to be back here making videos, reading books, and reviewing them, telling you guys what I think. This is something I love, and I'm really excited to be doing it again. So, I'm really excited, but before I talk about today's book, I want to touch on where I've been in the last 2.5 years in my absence. To tell you the complete truth, I was too nervous and too afraid to make these Book Nooks. I was nervous about people, like what they would say, and how they would tease me and make fun of me, so I stopped, which is one of the biggest regrets of my life. Something I've come to realize in the past 2.5 years is that no matter what you do, as long as it's not hurting anybody, you need to do it, because we should all do what we love. We only have a shorter amount of time here on Earth, so we need to do what we love regardless of what others think. And if that just touches one person out there who's watching this video, they're thinking, maybe I can do that too, and you start to do what you love, no matter what other people think, then that's a win for me. So, without further ado, let's talk about the book. So, today's book is Fairytale by Stephen King, and I'm super excited to review this book. This is my first Stephen King book, so I'm really excited to tell you guys what I think about it. So, let's do it. Alright, so before I get into the real book review part of this, I want to touch on two things. So firstly, I want to talk about how this is a spoiler-free book review. So the only things that I'm going to be talking about in this story, the only parts of it, are what you can find on the inside cover of the novel. If you're just going through Barnes & Noble or the library and you open a book up, you want to read a little bit of the summary about it, see if you like it. That's kind of what I'm going to be touching on, stuff like that. And I'm going to talk about what I liked, what I didn't like about the book, very specifically, so it won't ruin the book for you, because I think everyone should read this book spoiler-free. I think everyone should read books spoiler-free. So if you're someone who doesn't like spoilers, you're all good here. And second thing, I want to talk about the age level of this book. So I know in the past I've talked about younger children's books, and this book is definitely an adult book. It uses pretty strong language as well as some gruesome imagery. So if you're a younger kid, maybe go check out one of the other videos I've made and leave down a comment below of a book that you'd like me to review that's more age appropriate. But for this, I'd say definitely 16 and up for this book. But other than that, it's all good. Let's talk about it. I'm gonna read the inside cover for you guys really quick, just so you get a gist of the story. Charlie Reed looks like a regular high school kid, great at baseball and football, a decent student, but he carries a heavy load. His mom was killed in a hit-and-run accident when he was 7, and his grief drove his dad to drink. Charlie learned how to take care of himself and his dad. When Charlie is 17, he meets a dog named Radar and her aging master, Howard Bowditch, a recluse in a big house at the top of a big hill, with a locked shed in the backyard. Sometimes strange sounds emerge from it. Charlie starts doing odd jobs for Mr. Bowditch and loses his heart to Radar. Then when Bowditch dies, he leaves Charlie a cassette tape, telling a story no one would believe. What Bowditch knows, and has kept secret all his long life, is that inside the shed is a portal to another world. So now I want to talk about my absolute favorite part of the novel, which is the characters. So I'm a very character-driven reader. I love to see characters develop, and I love to see villains, heroes. I love to see all that type of stuff in a book, and good relationships between characters. This book has it all. So the first part I really want to touch on is how much you really get to know the main character, Charlie Reed. So you meet him, just get to see his entire life crumble in front of his eyes. His mom died in a car accident when he was 7 years old, and that drove his father into alcoholism, and he had to learn how to take care of him and his dad. So he becomes very responsible at a young age, and then there it kind of skips to when he's 17 years old, and you get to really go through his every day. Something I really liked about this book was how it's truly takes it moment by moment with Charlie, and you get to feel like you've known him your whole life, really, because of how long you literally spend a good first third, I'd say, probably, until right here. All that right there is just character development with Charlie, which is, I love, me personally. I love to get to know characters and, just spend time to get to know them. So yeah, I love that part, and you get very invested in them, so that makes it a joy to read, of course, every time you're invested into a character. And another thing, being invested in characters, there's a lot of side characters in this book, and a lot of whom are introduced in the second half of the novel, and every single one of them, I feel like, at least like, the good guys, I was very invested in. Like I said, I am a very character-driven reader, so that's just me. But me personally, I really enjoyed that part of the novel. So this is when I started to realize, oh yeah, this is Stephen King's strong suit right here, is his character development and his character relationships, which is the thing I'm going to talk about next. The character relationships between the characters was another great joy for me to see that happen. So in the beginning of the novel, like I said, in Charlie's development stages, he meets Mr. Bowditch, who is this old man who lives in this, the house that everyone thinks is haunted. Everyone has that somewhere, all the kids think it's haunted growing up, but he starts out as a grumpy old man, and then Charlie kind of softens him up, and seeing their, relationship grow is one of my favorite parts of the novel. I love to see, Charlie introduce him to like HGTV and all this stuff, and Mr. Bowditch showed Charlie like his old, was it the cathode ray TV. So that's a part I enjoyed a lot. And also there's a dog, and throughout the whole book, he's kind of like the co-star of the novel next to Charlie. It's a German Shepherd named Radar. So if you're a big fan of, like animal companion books, then this is definitely one for you. It's kind of that relatable story of that one loyal dog that you've had your whole life, that you really get to see, you saw it grow up and you love it so much, and then you just can't bring yourself to put it down, even though you should. That's kind of what Radar is, and that's really the beginning of the novel is, kind of revolves around Radar, which gets the plot in motion. So that's one thing. And Radar is really a well done character as well for being a dog. You can really seem to feel like you know her. I don't know how to say this because it's not this kind of fantasy where Radar can talk. Radar's just a dog, but Stephen King does a really good job at giving the dog a voice when obviously the dog doesn't have a voice. So that's my favorite part about the entire novel, was just the characters and how character driven it was. And the first third was, really, really good. It was really good. I love watching Charlie grow up. And not as much grow up, just grow as a person throughout the novel is more what I'd say. So that's my favorite part. Next, I'm going to talk more about this last 2/3 of the book, which is the actual Portal Fantasy book. So let's talk about it. And it's called a Portal Fantasy because in the shed, it's like a portal where Charlie steps into that takes him to a whole new world. And I've noticed that this world is a lot more lighter in tone than other Stephen King books, or that's what I've gathered from Stephen King's writing, is that it's usually dark and cryptic, but I've gathered that this is a lot lighter, and you can kind of tell that because he wrote this in the pandemic, and in the front cover it's talking about how he wanted to envision a world where he would be happier during the pandemic, and this was his creation. And I definitely thought you could see that part of the pandemic come out where we all wanted to be able to go to a different world, and this is a world that you'd want to go to. So I definitely thought I saw that part come out of it. And I also noticed there was a lot of Brothers Grimm allusions in there, like fairy tale characters, and I've already reviewed a fairy tale book on this channel once, so you guys know I love fairy tales. That's one of my favorite things. So I love the fairy tales in this book. It is called Fairytale, and it was also very reminiscent of H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft was also acknowledged in the acknowledgements, along with Ray Bradbury, I'm pretty sure was in there. So it's very reminiscent of H.P. Lovecraft. Even at one point, Charlie is in the castle area of the world, and he's even like, oh, this reminded me of something that I'd read in H.P. Lovecraft. So it's very inspired by H.P. Lovecraft, and I like that. I like that part of it in the darker parts of the novel that weren't so light. So I like that part. But now let's talk about the parts I didn't like so much of the novel and kind of the things that turned me off about it. So we'll see there. One thing I disliked was the pacing of the novel. I noticed how the first half of the novel, the character development part, was definitely a lot slower. Took it day by day, like I said, moment by moment, to have Charlie's head, which I really did enjoy. But in contrast to the back half, and the days start really going by quickly, then, you know, the pacing kind of seems to be off a little bit, and I'm not too sure what happened there, but it really feels slow and, you know, like a lot of world building at the front, and then towards the back it's like and you miss one sentence really, and a couple weeks might have passed and you wouldn't know. So the pacing was definitely something I was off, as well as the romance section. And it's not that I hate romance. Romeo and Juliet is actually one of my favorite books, but it's not that I hate romance, but I just didn't really feel characters fit. I just didn't really see much of the romance unfold and how it began. So that was just my personal opinions, but that's two really small things that to be honest with you, I had to look a lot to find things I didn't like with that book, because I really did enjoy it so much. But that's just two things that I found that weren't my favorite. But okay, so now I'm going to talk about my ratings of the book, my final rating. So I've heard from other people online that this is the best Stephen King book to come out in years, which I would definitely believe because I enjoyed it so much. I'm not sure, since this is my first one I've read, so I'm not sure, but I definitely would believe it if it is his best to come out in a couple of years. And I love fantasy and fairy tale. It's really like my dream genre, those two things combined, and that's what this book is. So I definitely, me personally, I enjoyed it a lot. And if you're like me and that's two things that you love, then you'll definitely enjoy this too. And I want to talk about some messages that the book gives. I definitely think it'd be fun at the end of every book I read and every book review to tell some messages, because I think it'd be cool to be able to take some things away from this book that you can apply to your life. So what I found is that it's never too late to change your life around. Okay, so that's definitely applicable to a lot of people. And also is the connectivity across generations. And I know young people and old people don't always get, you know, along the best, and maybe we could take some lessons from Charlie and Mr. Bowditch. So those are the two main lessons I found in the book. And I think I'm going to do that after every book I read, is to try to find the message I can apply to my life, help make me a better person. So my final rating of this is I'm going to have to give this 4.5 stars. And I know that sounds like a lot, because it is, but it might be skewed, because this is my first Stephen King book, and I've enjoyed it so much. You know, it's been my first taste of how good he is at writing. He is considered to be one of the best authors of our age, so I definitely could be, you know, skewing my rating a little bit just since it's my first Stephen King book, and also it is my favorite genre. But for me personally, it was 4.5 stars. If you've read this book, make sure you leave down in the comments below what you thought about the book, because I want to see if, you know, my rating was accurate, and tell me if you thought it was as good as I did, because I really enjoyed it, and I'd recommend everyone watching this video to read it, as long as you're like 16. But, you know, that's my final book review. Alright, I want to thank you all so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe and share this video with a friend if you think that they would like this kind of book. Remember to stay true, be you, and I'll see you bookworms in the next episode. But until then, read on.